Greetings, dear friends. Today I will share with you a tale of love, betrayal, and the unforgettable lessons that life teaches us. Enjoy the story. The warm summer breeze rustled through the trees of Central Park as Nicole Benson sat on a weathered wooden bench, her hands trembling as she clutched a tissue. Tears streamed down her face, smudging her carefully applied mascara. She took a shaky breath, trying to compose herself before the impending conversation that would change her life forever. Ryan Vanderbilt strode up to the bench, his designer suit impeccable and his dark hair perfectly coiffed. At 19, he exuded the confidence and privilege of a young man born into wealth and status. He took a seat next to Nicole, keeping a noticeable distance between them. "What's this about, Nicole?" Ryan asked impatiently, checking his Rolex watch. "I have places to be." Nicole turned to face him, her blue eyes glistening with tears. "Ryan, I'm pregnant," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the rustling leaves. Ryan's eyes widened in shock, his mouth falling open. "What? How? We were careful." "I don't know how it happened," Nicole sobbed, burying her face in her hands. "But it did. I'm going to have a baby, Ryan. Our baby." Ryan stood up abruptly, pacing back and forth in front of the bench. "This can't be happening. We're too young for this, Nicole. We didn't plan for a child." Nicole looked up at him, her eyes pleading. "I know, but it's happened. We have to face this together, Ryan. I need your support." Ryan stopped pacing and turned to face her, his expression hardening. "Support? Is that what this is about? You're trying to trap me, aren't you? You think having a baby with a Vanderbilt will secure your future, given your modest upbringing?" Nicole gasped, hurt and anger flashing across her face. "How dare you accuse me of such a thing? I didn't plan this, Ryan. I'm just as shocked and scared as you are." Ryan scoffed, reaching into his wallet and pulling out a wad of cash. He threw it at Nicole's feet, the bills scattering across the grass. "Here, take this. But don't even think about trying to blackmail my family. You'll regret it if you do." With those harsh words, Ryan stormed off, leaving a devastated Nicole alone on the bench, the weight of her new reality crushing her soul. 25 years later, Ryan Vanderbilt sat behind his imposing mahogany desk, the Manhattan skyline stretching out behind him through the floor-to-ceiling windows of his high-rise office. At 44, he had built a business empire, his name synonymous with success and power. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in," he called out, straightening his silk tie. Rita, his personal assistant, entered the office, her sleek black dress and stiletto heels exuding professionalism and confidence. At 25, she was a force to be reckoned with, her organizational skills and efficiency unmatched. "Mr. Vanderbilt, I have the quarterly reports you requested," Rita said, placing a stack of folders on his desk. "I've also taken the liberty of scheduling your meetings for the week and making reservations at your favorite restaurant for dinner with your wife tonight." Ryan leaned back in his leather chair, a smile playing on his lips as he appraised Rita. "What would I do without you, Rita? You're indispensable." Rita met his gaze, her green eyes unwavering. "I'm just doing my job, Mr. Vanderbilt, but I must remind you, as I have before, that our relationship is strictly professional. I won't become another one of your mistresses, no matter how much you try to charm me." Ryan chuckled, holding up his hands in mock surrender. "I wouldn't dream of it, Rita. Your professionalism and boundaries are part of what makes you so valuable to me." Rita nodded curtly, turning to leave. "If that's all, Mr. Vanderbilt, I have work to attend to." As the door closed behind her, Ryan couldn't help but admire Rita's strength and resolve. In a world where most women would jump at the chance to be with a powerful man like him, Rita remained steadfast in her principles, refusing to compromise her integrity for personal gain. Gina Vanderbilt paced the marbled foyer of their Upper East Side penthouse, her designer heels clicking angrily against the floor. She glanced at the antique clock on the wall, fuming as she waited for her husband to return home. When Ryan finally walked through the door, Gina pounced. "Where have you been? I've been waiting for hours." Ryan sighed, loosening his tie. "I had a business dinner, Gina. You know how it is." Gina narrowed her eyes, her perfectly manicured fingers digging into her palms. "Business? Is that what you call it when you're out with your assistant? That little tramp, Rita? Ryan's jaw clenched, his patience wearing thin. Watch your tongue, Gina. Rita is a valuable employee and a consummate professional. I won't have you disrespecting her. Gina laughed bitterly. Professional? Please, Ryan. I see the way she looks at you, the way she fawns over you. She's just waiting for the right moment to sink her claws into you and become the next Mrs. Vanderbilt. Ryan shook his head, pushing past Gina. You're being ridiculous. I'm not having this conversation again. Rita is my assistant, nothing more. As he walked away, Gina called after him, her voice shrill. If she's just your assistant, then fire her. I want her gone, Ryan. I mean it. But Ryan ignored her, retreating to his study and slamming the door behind him. He knew he could never let Rita go. She was too valuable, too essential to his success. And if he was honest with himself, he enjoyed having her around, her presence a welcome respite from his wife's constant nagging and jealousy. Ryan adjusted his cufflinks as he waited for his old friends, Greg and Victor, to arrive at the upscale restaurant. It had been years since their last reunion, and he was looking forward to catching up and reminiscing about their wild youth. Rita stood beside him, her red dress hugging her curves in all the right places. Ryan had insisted she accompany him tonight, wanting to show off his stunning and accomplished assistant to his friends. When Greg and Victor finally arrived, they were accompanied by their own dates, women who were all too eager to drape themselves over the wealthy men. Ryan couldn't help but notice how Rita outshone them all, her elegance and poise a stark contrast to their overtly sexual behavior. As they settled into their seats, Greg leaned across the table, his eyes fixed on Rita. Ryan, you sly dog. Where have you been hiding this beautiful creature? Victor chimed in, his words slurring slightly from the pre-dinner cocktails. Seriously, Ryan, if I wasn't already married, I'd propose to her right now. Rita smiled politely, but Ryan could see the discomfort in her eyes. He quickly changed the subject, steering the conversation towards their shared memories and recent business ventures. As the evening wore on and the wine flowed freely, Ryan found himself increasingly drawn to Rita, her intelligence and wit shining through in every interaction. He couldn't help but compare her to the vapid women his friends had chosen, and he felt a sense of pride in having her by his side. The chef's special arrived at the table, a beautifully plated dish that drew appreciative murmurs from the group. Ryan, thoroughly impressed, insisted on complimenting the chef in person. Moments later, a stunning woman in a crisp white chef's coat approached their table, her blonde hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. Ryan's heart stopped as he recognized her face, a face he had never forgotten despite the passage of time. Nicole, he breathed, his voice barely above a whisper. Nicole's blue eyes met his, a flicker of recognition and pain passing between them. Hello, Ryan. It's been a long time. The table fell silent, the tension palpable. Rita glanced between Ryan and Nicole, her brow furrowed in confusion. Nicole turned to Rita, a sad smile on her lips. I'm sorry, I haven't introduced myself. I'm Nicole Benson, the head chef here. And you must be Ritz. Rita's eyes widened at the nickname. Mom? Rita whispered, her voice trembling. What are you doing here? Ryan's head snapped towards Rita, his eyes wide with shock. Mom? What do you mean, Mom? Nicole sighed, her shoulders sagging under the weight of the truth. Ryan, meet your daughter, Rita. The daughter you abandoned 25 years ago when I told you I was pregnant. The table erupted in chaos. Greg and Victor's dates gasping in shock while the men themselves stared at Ryan in disbelief. Rita stood up, her eyes brimming with tears. All this time you knew? She asked Nicole, her voice breaking. You knew he was my father and you never told me? Nicole reached for her daughter's hand, but Rita pulled away. I wanted to protect you, Ritz. I didn't want you to know the kind of man your father was, the way he treated me. Ryan stood up, his face pale. Rita, I had no idea. If I had known... Rita turned to him, her eyes blazing with anger and hurt. You what, Ryan? You would have been a father to me? You would have taken responsibility? No, you made your choice when you abandoned my mother. And now, I want nothing to do with you. With those words, Rita turned and walked away, her head held high despite the tears streaming down her face. Nicole looked at Ryan, her expression a mix of pity and disgust. You had your chance, Ryan. You could have been a part of her life, watched her grow into the incredible woman she is today. But you chose your own selfish desires over your family. I hope you can live with that. She turned and followed Rita out of the restaurant, leaving Ryan standing there, his world crumbling around him. Greg and Victor left shortly after, their dates in tow, muttering about the scandal and the disgrace Ryan had brought upon himself. Ryan sat alone at the table, his head in his hands, an untouched glass of whiskey in front of him. He thought back to that day in the park, the day he had thrown money at Nicole and walked away from his responsibilities. He had been so young, so foolish, so concerned with his own reputation and future. But now, faced with the reality of his actions, he felt nothing but shame and regret. Rita, his daughter, the brilliant and beautiful woman he had come to admire and respect, wanted nothing to do with him, and who could blame her? He had abandoned her, left her to grow up without a father, without his love and support. As he sat there, drowning in his own misery, Gina burst into the restaurant, her face contorted with rage. "There you are!" she shrieked, drawing the attention of the few remaining patrons. "I heard what happened. How could you, Ryan? How could you have a child with another woman and never tell me?" Ryan looked up at her, his eyes bloodshot and filled with pain. "Gina, please, not now." But Gina would not be silenced. She ranted and raved, her voice growing louder with each accusation. Ryan sat there, taking it all in, too numb to argue or defend himself. Finally, when Gina had exhausted herself, Ryan spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I messed up, Gina. I messed up badly. And now I've lost the one thing that mattered most, the one person who could have been my redemption." Gina stared at him, her anger giving way to a flicker of understanding. She sat down beside him, her hand resting tentatively on his arm. "What are you going to do?" she asked, her voice softer now. Ryan shook his head, his eyes fixed on the untouched whiskey. "I don't know, Gina. I honestly don't know." In the years that followed, Ryan tried to make amends, to reach out to Rita and Nicole, to apologize for his past mistakes. But the damage had been done, the wounds too deep to heal. Rita moved on with her life, her career skyrocketing as she used her intelligence and drive to make a name for herself in the business world. She never spoke of Ryan, never acknowledged his existence, even as his own empire crumbled under the weight of scandal and regret. Nicole continued to thrive as a chef, her restaurant becoming one of the most sought-after dining experiences in the city. She found love again, marrying a kind and gentle man who loved her and Rita unconditionally. As for Ryan, he spent the rest of his days haunted by the choices he had made, the family he had lost. He divorced Gina, unable to bear the weight of her constant reminders of his failings, and retreated into a life of solitude and regret. In the end, he died alone, a broken man, his wealth and success meaningless in the face of the love and connection he had so carelessly thrown away. Rita and Nicole stood together at his grave, the sun setting behind them, casting long shadows across the manicured lawn of the cemetery. They had come to pay their respects, not out of love or grief, but out of a sense of duty, a final acknowledgement of the man who had shaped their lives, for better or for worse. "I forgive him," Nicole said softly, her hand resting on the polished marble of Ryan's headstone. "Not for his sake, but for my own. I won't let his mistakes define me, define us." Rita nodded, her eyes fixed on the horizon. "I forgive him too, Mom, but I'll never forget. I'll never forget the lessons he taught me, the strength he gave me, even if he never meant to." They stood there a moment longer, the wind whispering through the trees, carrying away the last of their tears, the last of their pain. And then, hand in hand, they walked away, ready to face the future, ready to build the life they had always deserved, together.